Welcome to Leadership for Startups, where we help entrepreneurs and leaders build businesses that grow and flourish. My name is Toyo Shimbi, your host, and welcome to episode 14. I am super excited as my guest today is Obi Abuchi. Obi is the husband to his amazing wife for 17 years and the father of 3 exuberant and delightful boys. He's a coach and the CEO of Core Leaders International, the author of The Magic of Monday, and a transformational speaker. Obi is passionate about helping leaders grow in the area of personal mastery. He has coached leaders in corporate giants such as Shell, DHL, Tesco, helping them improve performance by redefining and shaping how they engage and inspire their people. Obi, welcome to the show.
Hey Toye, it's a delight to be on it. I love what you're doing, so yeah, great to be part of your show.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure having you, and obviously we know each other quite well, so this is kind of funny as well. But let's start off with some recent, well, not too recent, but over a few years now, you've moved outside of London, right, from the city. So maybe you can just share with our audience. So what are some of the benefits of moving outside of the city of London?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the reasons that we moved was at the time, it was to be closer to family. In the end, we're no closer to family, but we were also thinking about schools for our kids. And I'd always had this idea of living out in the country, being a bit closer to nature, having time to think, I love to read, and growing up, I imagined having a sort of a winter home or a summer home, and I live here all year round now. But it's pretty. We love it. We've got some nice nature walks around us and forests, and it feels like we get to have a lot of the fresh air. At the same time, I love going back into London, so I like that mix of being somewhat out in the country and then at the same time getting the buzz and the hustle of being in the city of London. So
yeah, I guess you can unplug, isn't it? You can sort of say
it's just definitely yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, it's a pleasure having you on the show. So we're going to sort of take it from way back, right? Just to give people a better understanding of who you are. So you studied manufacturing systems engineering in King's College University, and now you're
with management. I like to. I'm not just being pedantic. That's quite important because I was actually more interested in the management side of things, so working with people, and I did the engineering bit because I could. So anyway, I just thought that's worth clarifying.
Yeah, well, I guess that is I mean, as we work with different people, as you know, some people sort of categorize engineering as a different compartment to the people side of things. So obviously you must have been drawn to engineering for a reason, but now you're obviously completely on the people side. So maybe you can tell us a bit about the journey from there to where you are now.
Sure. If it's okay, I'm going to go back even further. So I often tell this story of finding a bit of my passion when I was 7, and I watched this movie called Return to Eden. It was set out in Australia, and at the beginning of this movie, this guy who's a washed out tennis player marries an heiress of an incredible estate, but he's only interested in her for her money, and And so shortly after, near the beginning of this movie, he throws her into a crocodile infested swamp. Now, I'm 7 at the time, so I probably shouldn't have been watching
Exactly.
it. But anyway, I did. And this crocodile came and almost mauled the lady to death. And she's got scars on her face. And luckily, an older guy came and found her and took her to his hut, sort of, and nursed her to partial health, and then gave her some money so she could go to a local clinic. And the doctor at the clinic turned out to be a plastic surgeon, and he performed plastic surgery on her, but also just instilled within her a greater sense of belief and self-confidence. And she ended up leaving and going on to become a model, and got revenge on her ex-husband. Now, the bit that's significant, though, is as a 7-year-old, I remember watching that movie and looking at what the doctor did, and he created this environment that gave this lady confidence and helped transform her. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to do what that doctor did. I want to help bring out the best in people and transform people. And so I thought the path was to become a doctor. And then I didn't get into medical school, and my life, it came crushing down in many ways, because for about 11 years, every single person that knew me, family, uncles, aunts, friends' parents, whenever they'd say, "Oh, Obi, what do you want to be?" "I want to be a doctor." And so not getting into medical school and not having the opportunity to study medicine, I thought, well, what else do I do? And I actually got feedback from one of the medical schools saying that, "Oh, we don't think Obi's passionate about science." And I thought, that's ridiculous. And anyway, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I look back and I think they were right. I wasn't passionate about science. I was passionate about people, and I wanted to work with people. So anyway, I then settled on doing a management degree of sorts, because I thought, okay, if I do some sort of management degree, then I'll work with people. And so I picked a course at the time that was physics with management. Okay. And then I had a chat with an uncle, and he said, well, why don't you do a core professional course? And if you know anything about, well, actually you do, but the audience, most Nigerian families, it's got to be either doctor, engineer, accountant, lawyer. It's one of those. Yeah. And so I think he threw that in, and I thought, well, fine. Yeah, I enjoy maths and physics, so I took engineering, and disliked the engineering part. Loved the management side more so, particularly a course called organizational behavior, which was all about people and how are people motivated, how do you get the best out of people in organizations. That's where I came across theories like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Hertzberg's motivation theory, and that, I think, then set me on this subtle trajectory of getting excited about organizational development. Now, I then joined a graduate development program for an engineering company contracted to London Underground, and I just, it didn't tick the box for me. Well, the program anyway, I wasn't excited about making trains go fast. I wanted to help people grow and develop, and so eventually I navigated my way out of engineering into business performance analysis, and then project management, and then transitioned completely into organizational development, change management. And as they say, the rest is history, and here I am today.
Wow, brilliant. I think it highlights this point about following your passion. So what's your perspective? I know that there are different views on the topic of follow your passion. I mean, what's your perspective on that in terms of turning it into a business or something along those lines? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think my perspective has evolved over the years. I think of, and we might get onto this later on, but I think that my younger days, early on in my career, I would say I had a lot of passion and zeal, but not a lot of knowledge or experience. Um, and by that I mean I thought things would come easy. And my first book, The Magic of Monday, it is partly autobiographical because it's about this character who's struggling to find a fulfilling career, and you just want things to be easy, you want things to be straightforward, and then you go into the workplace and you think, okay, it's not that easy. I had several failed starts at businesses where I thought, yeah, I'm so excited about this, and as soon as I share it with the world, they'll say, yes, it's amazing, and we want some of this. But I realized, well, actually, you've got to understand the market. You've got to understand business. You've got to have a skill that is valuable to people. One of the books that helped me with this early on in my career was by Jim Collins, Good to Great, and he talks about the hedgehog concept, and it's made up of three components. So what are you passionate about? So that's one component. What excites you, and what are you also talented in? Because on the one, you could be passionate about something, but you could be terrible at it. So do you actually have the talent and skill for it? And then there's a third component. What drives your economic engine? In other words, what will the market pay for? And I've realized those three categories are really critical, and something that's evolved for me in more recent years is this idea that you've got to become so good that people can't ignore you. So passion's great, absolutely, but if you're not skillful, if you are, I don't know, passionate about helping people or speaking, but you don't know how to craft an effective speech or keynote, and then you won't be as effective as a keynote speaker, as a motivational speaker, whatever the case may be. So I think passion's important, as that hedgehog concept, but there's more that is needed, and that's what I've come to realize over the years.
Yeah, I mean, you could related to things like X Factor, where people are passionate about singing, but they can't sing, isn't it? Yes. So I think it's great because you're saying that passion is important, because I think that you need that kind of drive, but there's some other things that need to be qualified as well, especially if it's a business, which is this something that the market wants? Something along those lines, which is brilliant. So we will come back to that. Obviously, you've worked with leaders in some well-known establishments. We are trying to educate our audience about some of the common challenges, so it might be helpful for maybe you can share what are some of the common challenges you see when you work with some of these leaders that maybe some of our leaders in startups might be able to relate to?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number, right? It's as a leader, you have moved from being an individual contributor or creator to someone who is trying to, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to create something out of nothing, and you are trying to meet a need in the marketplace. You are coming up with ideas and a couple of things. You're trying to figure out if there's actually a market for it, if there's value, will people pay for what we have to offer? So that's sort of the operational commercial side, and how do you optimize that? So leaders always trying to, that I'm working with, always trying to figure out how do we make this more efficient, more effective, We've got customers, customer needs are changing. There's globalization, digitalization. You've got that component, but then there's also the other side of how do you engage your people and how do you help them come to work, and not just for a paycheck, but they come and they give you that discretionary effort and they bring the best of their motivation and their creativity and their ideas, and how do you harness that? So you've got the operational task side of how do we make this an efficient, effective, profitable, sustainable business that does deliver, that meets a demand need in the market. There's that challenge, but then there's the other challenge of, and we do this with people. Even if we're using systems and automation, it's still people behind that, and how do you bring the best out of them? And that's what I see as the biggest challenge. And a lot of leaders either excel in one or the other. So they're either really, well, I say a lot of leaders, I wouldn't say they excel in one or the other. See, a lot of them still have to grow in that, but generally people have a preference for, really good at nailing the operation and not so good with people, or really good with people and not so good with the operation. When you're an entrepreneur, you kind of want to get the best of both, and that can be tough. I think one of the differences that, say, in a bigger organization is you've got a lot more people to draw on. Entrepreneurs, usually you're having to wear loads of hats while you're building, and that can be a real tension point.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, as you mentioned, that you've launched a number of businesses. Maybe you can share with us your own personal challenges that you faced in trying to get this off the ground, and things that you've learnt in that process personally.
Yeah. Wow. We could chat for hours on this one. So I said earlier on that, my younger days, early on in my career, lots of passion and zeal, not a lot of knowledge. And I think that the knowledge side for me was commercial awareness and knowledge. And for example, one of my first businesses was, my wife and I were created this business where we wanted to sell inspirational playing cards. And we came up with this really cool idea called of a pack of cards called Take on the Challenge. And I thought this was literally it wasn't about the money, but I did think this is just going to be so successful. I'm excited about it. Everyone's going to love it. And the 52 cards, and there's a challenge that you've got to complete, and you can play it with friends. And I thought that training companies would love it. And so we spent all of our savings at the time. I went to visit some card manufacturing company. I didn't know anything about getting several quotes and getting various suppliers, doing your due diligence and making sure that you can account for the margins. I had no clue about that side of things. All I knew was loved this idea. I thought I would buy into it. So if I'm going to buy into it, surely millions of people around the world would buy into it. Yeah. So we bought 5,000 of these playing cards, I had a few friends, including I think my father-in-law, mum. And we may have shifted, I don't know, I'm going to be generous, and 50 maybe.
Wow. It's a lot in storage.
And then and then this is a bit of a sore point, but I then got in touch with a company that I'd found over the internet to see if they could sell it for us, and they picked it up, and we didn't see the money, so I got duped there, sadly. But I think several lessons there that I didn't do my homework, because I was driven by a passion, but didn't have the commercial awareness, the business awareness at the time to understand the numbers. How do the numbers? Because a business with all the passion in the world, if you can't make the numbers work, provide a service to the market that they will pay for, and you earn a profit, you've got a good margin that you can then reinvest in the business, then it's just going to be a really cool idea, but not a business. So that was one of the big failures, but it's taught me a lot.
Wow, that's a great story. I'm sure not at the time, but there are lessons learned, isn't it? And so, based on that, what's your perspective on failure? Because I know that as we speak to different people, even for myself, it's not something that you necessarily always want to welcome, because you have a great idea, proof of concept, you want to go out there. What's your perspective on failure? What kind of message do you want to pass on to our audience as well?
Yeah, I think there are several things on this, and I'm going to be as honest as I can. My relationship with failure has evolved over the years. I'm an NLP practitioner, and one of the things that you hear in NLP is there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. It's easy to get that at an intellectual level. It's hard to internalize that at a heart level. And I've had some failures that have really rocked me, including the one with the cards. It's tough because it's a big dent to your ego, your confidence. One of the books that I read as I was starting my own leadership growth journey was John Maxwell's Failing Forward. And again, I think that there was a lot that I got at a conceptual level there, but didn't really internalize in my at a heart level and in my gut. And the lesson that I've learned now, though, is that there's no way to get to success other than through failure. And I really wish that wasn't the case. I really wish that wasn't the case, but it is. And so for me now, it's more about, okay, when things don't go the way I want, or I make a mistake and I lose money, or like I said, I've had a couple of businesses that I've started and had to wind down too, and it's realizing that there's still stuff that I can learn from that, and that's a journey. So I think now, maybe the way I would put it is, I've just become more tolerant and accepting that is the journey. And it does mean that I'm more inclined to do my homework to minimize the risk as much as possible. So you become better at risk management and trying to diversify your portfolio, and in terms of the products that we offer as a business, okay, how do we make sure that it's a variety of offerings, and in terms of clients, how do we make sure that we're trying to go business to business, business to customer, and so that there are different ways of spreading that risk and the opportunity to generate the income as well. But you only learn that by getting it wrong. And sometimes I think of it as a maze, right? There is a way out. There absolutely is. But it's incredibly rare that anybody would go in and immediately find a path. But that's the joy of discovery. Now, I might be making it sound easy. I think for me, that along the way, it has led to depression and discouragement and doubt and just throwing in the towel and giving it up. But if there's a passion, even when I've done that in the past and said, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore, there's just been that niggling desire to keep going and to make a difference in a way that matters to me. So I guess in a nutshell, it's a path you've got to take, and learning to have a tolerance for failure and just accepting that it's just reality. Not tying it to your own ego and identity has also been a big one for me, because in the past, if I failed at something, then I've internalized that and said, oh, I'm a failure, rather than say, okay, yeah, I failed, right? That I didn't know it. I didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the skill. That's okay, Obi, you can get better. So
yeah, no, that's yeah, I like that whole idea about failing forward. And one of the things we talk about the 12 characteristics of successful entrepreneurs, is one of them is resilience. So that adding in as part of the journey that you will fail. And as you said, just minimizing maybe the costs. And that's why there's a lot of talk now about creating what's called a minimum viable product before you sort of launch it and scale it up. That way it can minimize some of the costs. So I guess those are some of the things that in today's 21st century entrepreneur needs to start thinking about, so that they can minimize that kind of risk. But it is a mental challenge, isn't it? It's one thing to know it intellectually. It's difficult when it's you in the seats and you're experiencing it, isn't it?
It is.
And even for us, sometimes as coaches, you could be you're sort of on the other side. Yeah, it's okay, you can go through. But when it's yourself, then it's a different kind of thing, But I guess this is part of what's taking you on this journey to explore more around the core of what we should be focusing on as leaders. So do you want to maybe share with our audience some of the recent research and work you've been doing?
Yeah. So it's really interesting, actually. Just you said that this has led to. It's so true. There's a great book by a guy called Ryan Holiday called "The Obstacle Is the Way." It's incredible. I recommend every reader.
Put that in the show notes.
Read that. And it builds on this idea of resilience and the obstacles that we'll face and the challenges that we'll face. And so often, and I've experienced this in my life, where I face an obstacle and I am ticked off. I just think, why is this here? And yet I'm beginning to realize that actually sometimes that very obstacle, and this is the idea that Ryan talks about in his book based on some of the work by a variety of people, including Marcus Aurelius, that actually that obstacle, if you change your perspective, provides the very opportunity that you are looking for. And so in my case, for example, with a lot of the challenges that I've faced over the years, trying to build business or trying to grow as a leader, as a coach, whatever the case may be, I realized, because I've read so much, right? I've read, I've been inspired by Stephen Covey's stuff. That's what first got me into personal growth and personal leadership, and John Maxwell's books. I'm reading all the time, and yet there were so many times I figured, why is there this big gap between what I know and all of the concepts and the ideas in my head and reality? I'm not able to live it out. And and I realized that there was a lot of internal work that I needed to do. And now I think of it as I often use this analogy of an orange and say, um, when you squeeze an orange, what's on the inside will come out. Um, and you could try to pass off as an orange, yet you're really a grapefruit. And yet when the pressure's on, then your fears, if you haven't dealt with those, if you are ego led rather than sort of purpose led, then that will come out under pressure. If you pretend that you're about people, but really you're just about the bottom line and about results, and you don't care about people, again, under pressure, all of that comes out. And I realized that with a lot of the challenges and the failures that I had in the past, it just revealed that internally my leadership muscles, my resilient muscles just weren't as strong. And I needed those difficulties as that internal workout to strengthen me and give me the resilience that I need to be able to lift more significant weights going forward. And so a lot of my work now, it is very much geared around helping leaders develop a stronger core so that they're resilient on the inside, because your beliefs, your values, your just internal world is ultimately what sustains your success in the long run and prevents burnout. So I'm working on a book at the moment called How's Your Core? I've interviewed 60 leaders all around the world, from just various countries and different continents, and asking them lessons, asking them about leadership, asking them about what it means to be resilient, what it takes to avoid burnout. How do you deal as a leader with all of the stress and the strain and the challenges, not just within your business, but also in your personal life? And I'm really looking forward to sharing that when the book comes out. But a big theme is, if you don't have that internal character, that strength of clarity of your values and what you stand for, and have some habits that help you to maximize your energy and in a positive sense rather than in a negative sense, then you can't be effective as a leader in a sustainable way. So
Wow.
that's a bit of
You need to get a
an
bit
overview.
more.
But it led. But the only reason that I'm doing this now is because of some of the struggles and the challenges that I went through. And really, I often describe it as the dark night of the soul, where I just thought, Obi, this is going to crush you and kill you. But in navigating through that, I've realized how important it is to develop that inner strength in order to be able to be effective on the outside.
That's brilliant. I think this is really relevant for our audience, because, in a way, what you're saying is that if we look at the fact that most of our audience are starting something, bringing something that doesn't exist into fruition, bringing it into existence, that it is going to be a challenge. And from what you just said, it could be repositioned as our personal development plan, because in us facing these obstacles, the resilience, the challenges, the being squashed under pressure, it can really help us identify what's really on the inside. If I'm correct, that's more or less, I think, what you're saying, is that then how we then see that is going to be the most important part, because we can either run away from it or we can lean in towards it and then begin to deal with whatever is coming out. I mean, our last episode 13, was all about people and about how entrepreneurs today really need to value their people
Mm.
and not just say it, but it should show
Mm.
up in terms of reward. It should show up in terms of protecting them and making the right choices that is geared towards that statement that your people are your greatest asset. But that's one
Mm.
thing to say when you're not under pressure. It's a completely different thing to say when their deadlines, their targets, etc. So I think that's a really important perspective that you've got. So we have to definitely be looking forward to your book, How's Your Core. Can you maybe give us a bit of an insight into at least one or two things that we can do to begin to harness this core element and to put into practice what we sometimes have as aspirational principles or character qualities? Any ideas that could be quite practical to start putting into practice?
Yeah. So when I mean, the beauty of just that word core, it means two things. On the one hand, it means, just that our inner self, and so there are a variety of things there around, in terms of habits, journaling, being clear about our values, lots of talk about mindfulness and meditation, rest and renewal. The other part for me with core, core is an acronym for clear and congruent values, an optimistic worldview, rewarding habits, and empowering beliefs. And some of which it's available on our website, but also I will unpack a bit more in the book. But I'm going to talk about just the rewarding habits for a bit, because I think this is a practical example. As leaders, we show up in the workplace, and we show up either with the right energy, the positive energy to make a difference to the people around us, to make a difference to our customers, to think in a way that is clear and effective in terms of the solutions that we're developing, or we turn up with a degree of anxiety and kind of paranoia and negative energy. And for me, part of it is developing those rewarding habits that help you bring the best of yourself to work. And so I mentioned a few of them already. Just journaling, that gives you the opportunity for reflection and self-awareness. Rest and renewal. So many leaders are plugged into the matrix, so to speak, all of the time, and aren't taking the time to rest and refresh so that they can come back the next day or next week, whatever the case may be, and bring the best of themselves. Meditation, something that I've taken up recently, actually, just being trained in meditation, just to calm myself and reduce stress, so that I'm again able to bring the best of myself to interactions with other people. So those are just a few examples, but really about developing habits that help me to maximize my energy, to maximize my courage, to maximize my effectiveness in the way that I show up as a leader. So those are a few.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
More to be included in the book.
Yeah, well, definitely we're going to have you back then once it's released. What's the schedule on when you're planning to release this?
So I am consolidating all of the feedback at the moment, and the plan is to get it out next year. So first draft later this year, early next year, and get it out next year.
Wow, that's really exciting. Well, it's definitely been fantastic having you on this podcast today. Obviously, the purpose of this podcast is to encourage leaders to either start their initiative, or if they're on the journey, they've already started and they want to take it to scale up. So it'd be really helpful if you can share your thoughts on, first of all, what you see in terms of future trends. What should we be expecting to see in the world of business based on your own vast knowledge, interacting with various leaders from different continents? So, what will be your perspective in terms of future trends? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the big one is automation, right, and technology. I think technology will change the nature of our roles and the jobs that we do today, but I also think that it will always create opportunities for people, and that's why that idea of an agile mindset, being flexible with our learning, is critical. What's today's technology will be obsolete tomorrow, but I mean, I wouldn't, certainly for entrepreneurs or leaders, I think hone your craft and do what you do well. I mentioned this at the beginning, but become so good at what you do that people can't ignore you, and then you end up leveraging the technology that will come. Personally, I've realized I'm not going to become an expert in technology. There are other people out there. I'm going to continue to hone my craft as an expert in personal leadership and personal mastery, and just use the technology that is available and that is around me. But I see that as being just an ongoing trend, that there'll be new technology that we need to leverage and adapt for our businesses.
And how do you think that will impact leadership in particular?
Well, I mean, I see that there's this phrase that is becoming more and more popular. What does it mean to be a digital leader? I.e., what does it mean to be a leader in a digital world? How do you make the use of social media to engage your people, and not being so? I think for leaders, it's not being afraid of the technology and not being afraid to learn how to use the technology if it helps you to engage and connect with your people, but not at the same time, don't forget that it really is still all about your people. So use the new tools to connect with them and engage with them, and get people around you who are experts in it, and pick their brains and be curious. That's a critical one. I think staying curious about it rather than overwhelmed or afraid.
Yeah, brilliant. So I'm sure members of our audience might want to get in touch with you. How can they connect with you?
Well, they could connect either via LinkedIn. I'm Obi Abuchi, or our website coreleaders.co.uk. So they can go on to that, find out more. If we can help in any way, we'd love to.
Brilliant. Thank you. So any kind of final advice for our leaders that are on their journey of their startup from you?
Yeah. You, as a leader, you can focus on the strategy of your organization. Hey, what do we do? What's our purpose? What are we about? What are our values, vision, etc.? You can nail that. You can nail the tactical side of things, day-to-day operations. How do we engage with clients? But the bit that you will take with you everywhere is your personal self as a leader, and your leadership will only be as effective as you are, and the stronger your internal muscles, your resilience, your self-awareness, your beliefs and your values, the clearer those are, the stronger those are, the more effective you'll be as a leader. When you go onto the airplane, they say, and you hear the safety announcement, they say, make sure you put on, if the oxygen masks drop, make sure you put on your mask first before you put it on your loved ones. And so as a leader, you do not underestimate the importance of developing yourself, growing yourself, being as strong as you can be in order to give your best to your business and to your customers and to your family as well. So that's what I would say.
Wow, brilliant. Well, Obi, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom with us. And you've mentioned different books. We'll definitely put those books in the show notes. We've learned a lot from you. To summarize, you talked about it's not just focusing on the strategy side of leadership, but the people side. You shared with us some of the lessons that you've learned and about embracing failure, which is such an important point about seeing it as an opportunity, not an obstacle. You've also talked about habits and about rewarding and really taking time to focus on ourselves, our core, so that we can be better leaders for others. And this has been brilliant advice for all of us. So I really want to thank you for being on today's show. And as he said, if you want to contact Obi, you can go to coreleaders.co.uk, or you can find him on LinkedIn. We also put a link to his LinkedIn page on the show notes as well. Audience, this is Leadership for Startups. If you want to grab hold of this podcast, go to leadershipforstartups.com. You can subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. And Obi, I want to thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Thank you. It's been a joy to speak about this, and wish you all the best with everything you're doing as well.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have you back once you launch your book, and we'll have you back again to share your additional wisdom that's come out from that. And from now,
I look forward to it.
Yes, but between now and then, I want to wish you every success. And to the audience, I want to also say, to your success. We'll speak to you shortly in the next episode. Thank you very much for listening, and take care.